everyone. Welcome back to the PFF Betting Podcast. I am your host, Kendall Ben. Joined with me, we have a treat today because we not only have Ben Brown, as always, we also have Eric Eager here with us. And we are talking everything Super Bowl. The best bets that you can make are obviously the early ones, so we're going to get into it right now. The moment we've been waiting for since September is finally here. In honor of the big game, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 56, is giving new customers 56-1 odds on either team. Bet just $5 and get $280 in free bets if your team wins. DraftKings Sportsbook is now live in New York, meaning you can bet from almost a third of the country. If Sportsbook is in your state yet, play DraftKings Daily Fantasy Football Contest for Super Bowl 56. New customers can get a shot at a $1 million top prize with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use promo code PFF, and get 56-1 odds on either team. Bet just $5 and get $280 in free bets if your team wins. That's promo code PFF at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 56. 21 plus, see DraftKings.com/sportsbook for full list of requirements and state-specific responsible gaming resources. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Tennessee, call the TN Red Line 1-800-889-9789. In Connecticut, call 888-789-7777. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY. Eric, welcome back to, we haven't had you on the podcast in a really long time, and that is on Ben and I. So welcome back. Tragedy. We're excited to have you.
Yeah, it's great. It's been a while. It's been too long, in my opinion. The playoffs have been remarkable. The models have done well. I think the props have done well. The only thing that's, now we have to watch a Bengals Rams Super Bowl, which was certainly less preferable to some people than like 49ers Chiefs.
Well, some and people. You were at the Chiefs game, so you can't, that's kind of where you're coming from here.
Yeah. And like I had Kelsey and Hill overs. Luckily those basically hit in the first half, or else that would have been a bad beat. Mahomes over 2.5 touchdowns again, first half. But that game, was crazy. I mean, if you teased Chiefs down, imagine losing that game. It was just a crazy one. But as I know with you, Kendall, with your social media stuff, I'm somewhat in a kindred spirit with you in that, like, if some other team had to win, I'm kind of a fan of our hometown Bengals. Like, I kind of like Burrow. I've been to like 5 or 6 of their games this year, and they're fun. And like, I gotta say, like, I was walking up the stairs on the way, and like, I gotta say, I was really sad. I saw a couple wearing Bengals gear, probably in their 60s, crying on each other's shoulders, and it kind of straightened me out a little bit. I'm like, okay, I can do this. And I went up to them and I said, hey, congratulations. And I basically said congratulations to everybody on the way to my Uber that was wearing Bengals gear. So that made me feel good.
The Bengals are a fun team to root for and a fun team to post on social, because, when we're posting on social, nothing ever misses when you post Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, McPherson, like nothing. Those are easy 1K likes, 1 million impressions. So that's a great thing for me.
There we go.
Great.
Easy button is the Cincinnati Bengals, right? So
yeah, exactly. Well, we'll get into your favorite props. We're going to kind of reference a little bit of everywhere, right? We're going to reference PFF and everything that you guys have on that best bets page. Westgate came out with some things. So I want to start with you guys. I know the one that I've heard you guys talk about a lot, Eric. Also, everyone, Eric is a TikTok star now. So go follow Eric on TikTok. Ben as well. Ben is getting.
I'm started. I haven't actually started. I've just started following people.
All right. Well, we're going to get there. They're both TikTok stars. Go follow all of us on TikTok. But the one that you've talked about, especially you, Eric, have been very vocal about Cam Akers. And his, like, I've seen it a little bit of everywhere, but where are you seeing his rushing yards? And I know you're taking the under there.
Yeah. Westgate Superbook had it at 68.5 when they opened yesterday. And like, it's kind of a different era in Super Bowl betting, right? Because up until maybe a couple of years ago, when the Westgate dropped their numbers, those were the numbers, right? And that was kind of the beginning, and then all the offshores would follow through. And since we have legalized gambling in a lot of states now, DraftKings, FanDuel, I mean, we were betting props when, Ben? Monday?
I mean, they
Tuesday?
were out early Monday morning,
Oh
even
my
like
gosh.
Sunday night,
Yeah.
there were some opportunities already. So yeah, we had
So the
player
interesting
props
thing
in
with
the
this-
tool. Yeah, early on.
So the interesting thing here is that like so the Westgate used to like put their props out there, and it was one of those things where if you went to Vegas, you had to like stand in line and they gave you a max of like 1 or 2 bets at a time, and then you have to go back in line, and then those numbers would get pounded into place. The interesting thing now is the numbers are kind of in place already, and then the Westgate gives out their own numbers, and like where you see daylight, you can kind of be either say, oh, okay, I got a good number, or oh my gosh, I got a bad number. And Ben and I took, a little bit of Akers, 65.5 under that. Akers has been 2.6 yards a carry, throughout the playoffs. He lost he went down 11 carries from 24 to 13 from the divisional round to the NFC title round, I think because he had 2 fumbles in the divisional round. And then from there, it was, it was a little bit of Sony Michel. You got to think that both teams are going to want to run the football and keep the game sort of like shorter. But I don't think Akers is going to be effective. Like he just hasn't. Achilles injuries make running backs worse. And even though he's a great story, he has not been like effective so far since coming back. And I think that that's an edge that some people can exploit.
Ben, what are some of the ones that you've seen? I know you already said Cam Akers, but you had some early ones too that you'd been talking about.
Yeah, definitely. So I do definitely want to piggyback off Eric. I mean, Cam Akers going like under 60.5 rushing yards in that conference championship game against San Francisco was probably one of like our best bets. I did try on some alt unders as well with him. Didn't quite get there, but he was basically nowhere close to his actual prop number. So I do think that's really good. Another guy that we rode pretty heavily in the conference championship round makes, complete sense to go back to the well on, I think, is Cooper Kupp over 8.5 receptions. This was a spot where early on, Eric and I bet it at like plus 115, plus 120. I do think it's close to like minus 105 now. So around like a 20-25 cent flip in the juice. I do still like him to go over that 8.5 receptions. I do think that he's obviously going to be pretty heavily involved. I know a lot of people want to back the Odell Beckham Jr. feel-good story, but I still think this is going to be a pretty heavy Cooper Kupp show. And we also, another spot that we kind of like, according to the props tool, is Cooper Kupp to go over 0.5 rushing yards. I know Westgate actually posted a prop for him to have a rushing attempt at plus 175. If he goes over 1 yard, that pays out at like plus 250. So I do think there's quite a bit of value on that. He has been at least somewhat involved in the rushing attack basically over the last 7 weeks. I think he has 4 rush attempts in that time period. So if they want to get their best playmaker, the ball maybe in space, I do think we're going to see him on maybe like a jet sweep or something like that. And I do think that he'll go over that 1 rushing yard. So I like those 2 quite a bit for Cooper Kupp.
Interesting. Getting dirty, Ben.
Dirty. That's like that. That's like a
so
level
funny.
below or level above the quarterback rushing props, right?
Hey, we love the quarterback. One I did see though that has been passed around is Cooper Kupp to go over 27.5 yards on his longest reception. Do you guys like that a little bit or no?
I don't mind it. I do tend to not play like the over single length reception numbers just because I mean I do think the volume is going to be there. It depends on if he probably actually breaks a tackle or something. But yeah, anything for Cooper Kupp over, I'm definitely can get on board with. I just think there's probably better opportunities maybe in other spots than just his longest reception.
Plus
it feels
Bengals,
just more random to me, right? So
yeah.
Bengals playing a lot of like, good coverage right now. It's tough here. Here's one that I kind of like, everybody. The team to use the first coaches challenge, Los Angeles, plus 105.
I mean, it's a lock, basically, right?
Is it a lock? Wait, is it a lock?
Sean McVay is a great coach. He's the better coach in this game. But the guy's an absolute donkey when it comes to like the edges of the game, the timeouts, the challenges, the 4th down decisions. We were talking about the prop that Ben, I think, bet, which was the longest touchdown drive being under a certain like 83 or 84 yards. And I think like the one thing that keeps that bet alive is that both of these coaches are going to punt at their opponent's 40, right? Like, and so you're going to get some drives inside the 15 just by game state. But like this idea that Sean McVay is like better than Zach Taylor in like the keeping his challenges in his sock type of thing, I reject. So
right.
That is a lock then. Than what you just expressed.
I think the timeout is a lock. I also think maybe the under drive yardage could potentially be a lock. I do think at like bet 365. It's at 85.5. DraftKings has it closer to 82.5. So if you're getting way up in that 85.5 range, that seems like a really good spot. But I agree with Eric. There is some risk to it because the teams don't actually have to score in order for that to count as like a longest drive, right? Like they could get stopped, 4th and goal or something like that, not actually convert into a touchdown or scoring situation and still have that one go over if we do get some of those punts on the other team's 40-yard line. So I'm a little bit more nervous of that one, but I definitely agree with Eric that the lock is, Sean McVay to use that first time out for sure. So
I guess I kind of want to know too, like go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, keep going. I'll bring up another.
I just kind of wanted to get, I guess, your guys' perspective, because I know we're going to break down the game like way deeper next week. But for this podcast, I kind of just wanted to know really quick, like Rams are 4.5 point favorites, right? The over under is at 48.5. Like where I guess you guys see this game going this early. And Eric, I'll start with you on that one.
The Super Bowl is one of those where you really have to bet it right away. Okay. Ben and I got under 50, under 49.5, under 49. And I think we have maybe a couple bets depending upon, like at 48.5, I think we're on either side of that. This thing has gone from 4.5 to 4, basically back and forth. I did grab some Rams at 4, but Greenline does, please buy our product, but Greenline likes 4.5. And I see those two things kind of oscillating all week. I think people are going to like the Bengals at 4.5. There's going to be buyback on the Rams because of all the mismatches that the Rams have in their favor. And I think the total of 48.5 is probably right. I think some people will come in on over later in the week.
Ben, what about you?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I do think that if I was trying to play anything on the game spread or total, I definitely like Bengals plus 4.5. I also think they're going to be really popular on the money line. There is still some 4.5 sold in LVI. It has oscillated basically between 4.5 back down. I do think that the public side is probably Cincinnati in this particular matchup. Obviously, the feel good story, all these other things, taking out the Chiefs, everything else. So I do think that I'm probably siding with the public, but I don't really mind that in this particular spot. And I do think 4.5 is maybe just a little bit overstating the play that's going to happen in the trenches where the Los Angeles Rams are basically going to be dominating, right? So I do think that the key for me is, how well does Jamar Chase do when matching up against Jalen Ramsey? And if that's like a struggle for Cincinnati, how explosive can T. Higgins be, especially after the catch? And I do think that if one of those two things hits for the Bengals, I do think that they're going to cover 4.5 points here pretty easily. So
this is when you guys sent, Eric, you sent the Westgate props, and it's a lot. Like how do you guys kind of go through all these props? This is kind of what I want to know as like new bettors come in, whoever's listening, watching this, like how do you guys go in and differentiate like what you should be betting right away and what you could maybe wait on?
Well, it's hard because I think once they come in, like you kind of have to find out what the sharpest books are and then look at dollar books for off numbers, right? So if you believe, so like for example, yesterday, if you look at Pinnacle or BetCris or something like that, Bet Online is generally speaking not bad at all. If you look at those numbers and they're appreciably different than any of the other places you're looking, then bet the other places you're looking if the number is that much different, right? You can pick up percentage points here and there, sort of all over the place. But the other thing, and I think that's huge about betting is like, just try to make the number yourself. So I know our colleague Martin Carlisle, who works in our group and Ben's group specifically, at PFF, like he tries to go out there and make his own numbers, which I think is extremely important because then, and then having the PFF props tool really helps in that regard, because then you can go in and like actually compare them, right? Like, and start small. Like I'm gonna, I'm looking right here because actually there's a bug on the PFF.com website, but there's actually a bet on this page that I actually think is a pretty good like indicator. Like there's numbers you can use that can help you make these wagers, and they don't require super complicated models. You can just sort of handicap it yourself.
Right. I definitely do. And I definitely think like a lot of people, especially, I mean, this good starting point is just figuring out league-wide base rates, right? Like for example, if we're looking at, the longest drive is it over under 85.5 total yards. Like you can look at how many drives actually started at that threshold or behind it, you can start to get an idea of like the percentage chances that they're even going to have a drive that is capable of actually being that long, and then kind of try to fold in some other things, fold in team dynamics as well. And you can come up with a pretty decent judge based on, where the betting market is to see if there's any actual value on a lot of these props. So that's, kind of what we've been doing. We've been adding a lot of player props to our betting tool, ones that we obviously typically wouldn't price out, but given, the wealth of data that we have at PFF, we can obviously put in place a pretty accurate price. And then once we do that, we can obviously look and, potentially compare to what the betting market is offering and find the best price on that. And I do think that is a way to actually find quite a bit of value, specifically on these Super Bowl props.
From now until February 14th, you can get 25% off any PFF subscription if you use code SUPER25. What can you get with a PFF subscription? Well, you can get all of PFF's locked article content, NFL betting dashboards for the playoffs. NFL Greenline is up 27 units this season. You can get the NFL draft guide and more. Support the pod and use promo code SUPER25 for 25% off any subscription. There we go.
So here's an example of a prop to me that is an absolute mispricing. So here we have Evan McPherson first kickoff is a touchback. It's minus 110. So basically you're saying there's a 50-50 chance that Evan McPherson is going to kick a touchback on the first kickoff. If you look at, and again, we have a little bit better data than everybody else, but you can even look at PFF.com for it. 78% of Evan McPherson's kickoffs go into the end zone. Right. And that's a guy that plays in Cincinnati, which we all know, Kendall and I are living through right now. It's cold here, right?
Yeah.
The Rams only return 13% of kickoffs that go into the end zone, right? So you can make a price for that, right? 78, and you take off, take 87% of 78. That's far bigger than the 52.5% you need to make that bet even money. So that's kind of where you want to look at. Whereas, Matt Gay's first kickoff being a touchback, I mean, LA does it about 79% of the time as well. Mm-hmm. But again, that number, so you kind of like working through just very, very simple props and trying to price them out that way, because again, it's not, finding out how many yards Cam Akers is going to have is actually hard. You got to okay, how much, what's the game script going to be like? How many yards is Sony Michel going to get? How many times is Stafford going to pass? Is Cam Akers getting hurt? There's many variables there, but there's a lot of props where it's relatively few variables.
Right.
Yeah. Ben, do you have other props that you're kind of looking at too? I know I want to ask both of you that before we get into our rapid fire props, but what other ones are you kind of looking for this early?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton out there already, right? But I'm definitely interested in, I do think that a really easy step for people to do is just like comparing numbers across multiple books, kind of like what Eric said. And I do think that, like the lower tier numbers, like obviously not somebody like Cooper Kupp's receiving yards number, if that fluctuates basically 3 to 5 yards across his span between like 103, 108 or whatever, that's not nearly as important or valuable as it is if you're looking at somebody like, Sonny Michel to go over his receiving yardage number or something where that's more in like the 12.5 to 16.5 range. If you're finding 4-yard differentials in that particular market for Sonny Michel, that's a lot more valuable than it would be in Cooper Kupp's market. So just understanding the value is a lot higher in some of these lower tier markets, I think is a great way to actually find value as well. But a couple other that I'm looking at, I know we always have to talk about the quarterback rushing props as well. I think Matthew Stafford basically is at 5.5 rushing yards. The Westgate, obviously they do this for the Super Bowl. They don't do it for any other times, but they also have, first rushing opportunities. So I do think Matthew Stafford's at like 2.5 rushing yards for his very first carry. I actually lean, even though I like, the quarterback rushing props, I do lean toward the under for the first rush attempt for both Joe Burrow and Matthew Stafford. There's just so many scenarios where something happens near, the line of scrimmage where they only need to pick up 1 yard, or on a scramble situation where they really only gain 1 yard or just get back to the line of scrimmage, and that doesn't count as a sack. So I think on like their very first attempt, especially if they don't have any rushing attempts whatsoever, you do hit the under on that as well. I do like maybe playing the first particular rush attempt to the under, and that's a spot that I do think offers quite a bit of value as well.
Who knew we could get even like deeper into the quarterback?
Right. We can go as deep as we can possibly go right now. Right. So,
yeah. Eric, any other ones that you really like that you're looking at that you want to let everyone know?
Yeah. Let me look here. I like, a couple, like, I like Stafford and Burrow, no interceptions. I do like that a lot. I do also like total sacks over 5 at plus 100. I think obviously Burrow's the leakier, but I think Stafford also will take some sacks. Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard were fantastic against the Chiefs. So those are a couple that I like right away. One to think about, and again, I actually think this is because the game will be, so here's one that's tricky. Okay. Will there be a 2-point conversion attempt? No is minus 120. Will there be a successful 2-point conversion attempt? No is minus 280. I originally wanted to bet no on will there be a 2-point conversion attempt, but here's my trick. Here's the tricky thing. Both teams like to kick field goals.
Right.
And the only way you can get to from 6 to 14 is through 8. And that, to me, I think that's maybe why. Now, historically, the no 2-point conversion was way bigger, right? Because, was way more of a favorite. So looking at it at minus 120, you're like, oh, that's pretty even money. We don't see 2-point conversions in a lot of games. It made me pause a little bit. That is the only side to bet. The no is the only side to bet. But there are 2 teams that love kicking the hell out of field goals in this game, which means when they do get their touchdowns, they might need a 2-point conversion.
There we go. Well, I wanted to play a quick game, and we got this from our producers, so this is why we're going to do it. It's just rapid fire props. I don't need you guys to tell me if you're going to bet them or not. I just want to hear, these are outrageous, some of the things that are on here. So I just kind of wanted to hear over, under, yes or no, and get your guys' ideas before we break off here. So total points by Evan McPherson, over, under 7.5.
I mean, Eric said it. They like to kick field goals, so I think you got to go over, right? Yeah.
Over. Okay, I like it. Will the Bengals score in all 4 quarters? Yes is plus no. Yes is plus 320.
Yeah, that's kind of enticing, but I don't see it happening. I don't know if I gotta. Yeah, I don't think so. No. I'm gonna go no for sure.
Yeah,
so.
No's the favorite there.
No's the favorite. All right. Who will have more? This is just wild. Who will have more? The Miami Heat first quarter points or Joe Mixon receiving yards?
I'm going to go Miami Heat Nets. I'm going Miami Heat first quarter points for sure here.
And this is, you guys have said this one, will there be a missed extra point kick? Yes, no.
I bet I'd lay the number with a no. A lot of these, the big no favorites are actually the best.
Right.
The better bet.
Right.
All right. First, and I know, Ben, you don't like these that much, but first reception by OBJ over under 9.5 yards.
I'm going to go under with that.
Okay.
Eric, do you have an opinion on that one?
I think under is probably the better play.
There we go.
Under.
There we go. Well, and this is the last one. Will either team score in the first 5.5 minutes of the game? Yes is plus 160.
Yeah, not to be too much of a nip, but I do think no is the correct spot there too. Minus 180. No. I just think, we're boring right now. Talk to us again next Saturday or Sunday. We're going to be just full on degening at that point. So
perfect.
Might not be the best time. I don't know for sure. So,
well, Eric, thank you so much for joining again. Ben, as always, everyone, pff.com/betting. We have all the props ready to go for you guys. So go to our best bets page. That is where you can find all this information. And thank you so much for listening.